I think one of the greatest things which I like to see with my personal learners are the opportunities they have where, particularly during the research projects and dissertations, that is the kind of moment where you get to see people really flourish and become independent as learners, which is just absolutely brilliant. My name is Lee Reid, and I'm the programme leader for the foundation degree and bachelor degree in animal behaviour, welfare and conservation. Higher education then. In general, that is the next steps up from usually students who have just completed their level 3 at college. Sometimes we'll take students in from industry, so some people may want to leave and come back. We'll talk about that one later. Or sometimes students will come in from an Access to HE course as well. Now, in terms of what it means, it is meant to be that next step progression. So it's a level 4 and level 5, which is our foundation degree, and then learners can go up to do a level 6, which is then a bachelor degree. From there, there's even further steps to do with master's degree and PhDs, which we don't actually deliver here. But again, those are still possibilities. But I think the main thing, if you're going to ask me what the difference is between FE and HE, it's kind of that remit of specialism. So entry requirements are variable, depending on which course you're actually looking to apply for. So the best bets are to just kind of get in contact, not just with us as programme leaders here at Kingston Moor, but anywhere, because it's also quite nice to kind of get a feel for what's around to make sure you are in the correct course for yourself. And then we'll kind of discuss how you get into our courses on an individual level. In terms of learners coming onto our degree, at times what I find is that some people aren't ready yet. But I feel like in terms of the role that family members could have and other teaching staff, I think it's really important just to highlight all the options that are available. Hence why I state that they may not be ready yet to do a degree. So in terms of other things that learners can do at the end of level 3, sometimes it's always quite nice to see people go away, live life a little bit, become independent, get themselves a full-time or part-time job, particularly again if it's in the industry they're interested in participating within our degree, and then kind of coming back, because that way in terms of the learning experience they're able to apply what it is I'm teaching in context, and then we get this kind of quite full discussion going on in the classroom, which is always quite nice to see. Yeah, so in terms of the teaching delivery then and the learning itself, generally most questions that are asked towards me are what days of the week and how much effort is required to put into a course. So generally if you're doing a full-time foundation or bachelor degree, that will be 3 days a week. And we have what's called a semesterization, which is where you take half of the course between around September and February time, and then you have the second half of the course, so all the modules will change, between February and June time. Now, what that means for learners is that you kind of get to focus on a few modules in depth rather than trying to juggle multiple different modules at the same time. So there's kind of that aspect in terms of the days of the week. In terms of teaching delivery, what's quite nice about working here for me as a teacher personally is that I get to have a bit more, I guess, of a connection with the learners in the sense that I get to prompt, push, challenge them so that way they can kind of progress and achieve what they want to achieve. We want learners to come in almost knowing that they don't know something, so that way we can prompt them to learn, which is something I'm going to really emphasize as a teacher. It's okay to not know something. Otherwise, what's the point in doing a degree? We are here to push and challenge you. So in terms of flexibility for participating in our courses, we have quite a few learners which are parents, which perhaps have a full-time job or a part-time job, or maybe they're carers for family. And I cannot emphasize enough that's going to be one thing which is really critically important, whether you come here at Kingston Moor College to study or you go somewhere else. It's to actually communicate with your teachers, or at the very least your programme lead, to inform them of what is actually happening in your life. Because we can be to some extent flexible in nature. We call it mitigating circumstances. And I think it's really important to have that open conversation between family members and their children and us as staff, and also the workplace as well. So in terms of expectations for studying, particularly here, we are looking for learners that do want to be challenged. I cannot emphasize that enough, and it's something which I mentioned a little bit earlier on, is that we want people to progress and to achieve. So in terms of our approaches then, all of our assessments are swinging away from these long 3,000 word reports, and instead we're looking for things which are going to be a bit more useful for employability purposes. So we're trying to find that nice balance between higher level academia and actually being able to get a job. So we've kind of fused the two together quite nicely. So we call that authentic assessment. So instead of these long-winded reports, instead we're getting learners to apply practical skills, whether that be creating something like a welfare protocol, or maybe they'll have to write a sustainability policy, something that's actually going to be meaningful for them when they leave. So in terms of support, we do have a fantastic learning support team as well as a welfare learner team. In terms of the support that is provided here, I think it's phenomenal because there have been so many opportunities where learners perhaps have some form of barrier which they cannot pass independently, but then as soon as they go to see learning support and our welfare support team, they come back to me just ready. So yeah, cannot thank that team enough. The other great thing is the actual community that we are building here in terms of learners. So because we have, I guess, comparatively smaller classes to what you may consider like a mainstream university, you know, our groups are perhaps somewhere between the sizes of 4 up to 20. That's usually about the kind of the range, I guess, which we have in our particular courses, which is great because it means that usually we get quite a lot of tight-knit friendships, and they kind of get to know each other quite well, and when something's wrong they can then kind of pick up on it. Sometimes they'll come to me and go, could you go check on this learner because something might be wrong. And I think that's fantastic to see within that community, and it's only ever going to get stronger now. We have some learners that again progress up to complete their master's degrees or their PhDs, so that's kind of the academic route. And we've had some people, for example, that have gone out to Australia to study sharks. We've had some people go across Asia and study conservation practices. And I guess the third route is more of the kind of the traditional job career aspect. And I guess in terms of the reason why people might want to do a degree rather than just go straight into a job after level 3, is that, well, I guess once you complete level 3, sure, you could become like a zookeeper. But then usually if you want to progress up higher, you may want to have a degree, because that way you can kind of perhaps then be able to lead a team within some form of conservation role within your department. And I think that's quite an important thing to kind of realize is the value of a degree. So just as a final point, if you do have any questions, then just get in contact. I cannot emphasize enough that we are here to discuss your future possibilities and prospects.